Shabbat Shalom. I have two sermons. I couldn't decide which one to give. Every week I have to choose between talking about the world in which we live, and especially Hamas and Israel and the war, or talking about the Torah portion of the week. So tonight I'm going to do both. Don't get nervous, both sermons are short. First, Israel. I'm heading to Israel in a week with a few congregants, so I will be here next Shabbat and then I'll take off for Israel. I want to share with you where my head is. Let's not just talk about the intentions behind our words. Let's talk about their impact. I don't know what is in someone else's head when they say from the river to the sea. It's hard for me to imagine they affirm Israel's right to exist or believe in a two-state solution. I do know how those words impact me and my community. Their impact is a call for the destruction of the only Jewish state. If Israel had existed in the 1930s, the Holocaust would not have happened. Israel is also our indigenous homeland. I also think about the impact of my words. I am glad the United States is building a port to aid Palestinians. I think Netanyahu and his right-wing coalition are awful, but I believe nothing will get better for anyone if Hamas can perpetuate October 7th again. I don't want the children of Gaza to suffer, and I support the IDF. I also have seen the videos of widespread enthusiasm for taking hostages, spitting on the bodies of Israelis and rape and making the population of Gaza complicit. All of those things can be true at the same time, but they don't fit on a banner. It is okay to ask if the Israeli army is doing all it can to protect civilians. It's okay to ask if they are doing everything in their power for humanitarian assistance while also accomplishing their mission. We have seen reports of starvation and surgeries without anesthesia. It's beyond comprehension, so those are fair questions. Not only are they fair questions, they are Jewish questions. Just by asking those questions, we are showing that we are not like Hamas, which doesn't care. And I would hope that some nuance and empathy for Israeli lives would be reciprocated. So I'm going to Israel to pick crops, pack boxes, show solidarity with the troops, mourn at the site of the Nova Festival, and hopefully be of help. And now for a Shabbat message from this week's Torah portion. The writer E.B. White is reported to have said, "I arise in the morning torn between a desire to improve or save the world and a desire to enjoy or savor the world. It makes it hard to plan the day." We know the world needs saving. On many fronts, we know we are in trouble. On Shabbat, however, we deliberately take a pause and remember to savor it. If we don't, we can burn out and forget what is worth saving in the first place. Life isn't just one long bucket brigade. It is also the rebirth of spring, the beauties of language and culture, and time spent with loved ones. 6 days a week we work, and on the seventh day we stop to simply be. It's not just a rest so we can work some more. It's time to appreciate. In this week's Torah portion, we learn this lesson in an indirect way. God tells Moses to assemble the people for the building of the tabernacle, their sanctuary. Clearly, this is holy work. However, the first instruction that God gives Moses is, on 6 days work may be done, but the seventh day is a day of complete rest. It may seem odd that the very first instruction for building the tabernacle is to make sure to take a day off, but the rabbis say this is deliberate. The lesson is that Shabbat is more important than building God's house. And as for other work, all the more so. For this reason, the rabbis understand that the actions for building the tabernacle may have been sacred, but they are still work. Their work was important, and your work is important, but living is more important. If we don't savor, then we forget why we should save. The why needs to come before the what. In the Mishnah, the rabbis outline 39 activities that provide the definition of work. I will break them down for you in 4 lists. Mishnah class is in session. The first list is, this is deeply inspiring religious literature. The first list is plowing, sowing with an O, reaping, gathering, threshing, winnowing, sorting, grinding, sifting, kneading, and baking. Now, if I do those activities from beginning to end, what have I just made? Bread. For the rabbis, this would have been the challah that was offered in the tabernacle. The list continues, and it's really a second list, which is shearing, scouring, combing, dyeing, spinning, warping, making 2 loops, weaving 2 threads, unraveling, tying, untying, sewing, and tearing. What have I just made from beginning to end? Clothing. And the tabernacle, this would have been the cloth sides of the sanctuary. The third list is trapping, slaughtering, flaying, tanning, smoothing, scoring, cutting, writing, and erasing. What have I just made? A scroll on parchment. We have the basic tool of learning, a book. And the fourth and final list is building, demolishing, extinguishing, kindling, a final hammer blow, and transferring something from one domain to another. So what have we just made? Some kind of shelter, which for the rabbis was the tabernacle itself. So if we take the 4 main products of the 39 activities, we get food, clothing, education, and shelter. You thought food, clothing, and shelter were the 3 essentials of life. Education is in the list. I mean, if you don't have a good book to read. So these, according to the rabbis, are the implicit necessities of life. These are what you need to survive. And Shabbat is when you don't need to do those things. In fact, you're forbidden from doing those things on Shabbat. You should make sure all of those activities are taken care of before sundown on Friday. And more importantly, you should make sure everyone else has them too. That way, everyone can, for at least 1 day a week, be able to do more than just survive. We can enjoy them. A good piece of challah, comfortable warm clothing, a book to read, and a roof over your head. Who could ask for anything more? And world peace, worldwide Shabbat, would be when everyone has those basic things. We are, unfortunately, far from that ideal. But in the 21st century, with all of our modern conveniences, we have, in the Reform movement, redefined what work looks like. We don't necessarily see turning on a light switch as work. Nevertheless, the main principle of Shabbat is the same: to stop fighting for survival and to savor the world together. Perhaps a full day is too much to ask for in your life. Perhaps that is unrealistic. Maybe Friday night is enough. The news will still be on, and it will still be bad later on. The laundry isn't going anywhere. Shabbat is an opportunity for a no chores, no errand period of time. It can also be a break from negativity. Instead of complaining, Shabbat can be a day of gratitude. We need to remember to say thank you. And we even sometimes need a break from outward-facing tikkun olam. Instead, we need tikkun olam. That's work. Instead, we maybe need to do some tikkun, some repair on the inside. Like the building of the tabernacle, every kind of sacred work needs a pause. And for us here tonight, it's also a chance for community to come together and online. And even in Israel, while the war is going on, people are going to restaurants and cafes and being sure to savor their lives. They are observing Shabbat. Life is full. And if they can do so, then we can too. Maybe it was one sermon. Shabbat Shalom.